Hey everybody, today I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on two House of the Dragon themed board games, the first of which being Sky of Fire, which is a deck building style game for 2 to 4 players, takes around 45 minutes to play, and the second of which is Seats of Power, 2 to 4 players again, you're looking at around an hour for this one. And this is more of a traditional area control style game. Now before I get started on my thoughts on these two games, I want to give a shout out to the show sponsor KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer, and if you use the link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. Okay, so let's start with Sky of Fire. Now, as I said in the intro, this is a deck building style game, and if you're involved in the board game hobby, you're going to know what that means, but if you're not, I'll kind of touch on what that means. So basically, everybody is going to start with an identical deck of cards, and each round you're going to draw 5 of these cards out that have different kind of icons on them. Now, generally speaking, most of your cards, at least to start with, will be these currency cards, but you also have these movement cards. And the objective of this game is simple. It's simply to get your character and your matching dragon to the Iron Throne by going along this track and playing better and better cards. You know, the first person to get their dragon and their character to the Iron Throne will be the winner. Now, the gameplay works by activating the cards. So in this example, I could play this one here to move my character. So I could move Damon here like this, and then move my dragon one space like so. And then the rest of the cards will be used to buy better cards from a shared market that looks like this. You have 3 tiers of cards. You've got the 1s, 2s and the 3s, and they get better but more expensive as they go. So you can see here that in the 1 stack I could do things such as changing cards in the market. I could force my opponent to discard a card randomly from their hand, or I could even colour card from my deck for the remainder of the game, which could be useful as your deck gets more and more lean and better cards become available to you. And you've also got the improved versions of existing cards, such as drawing additional cards into your hand, or moving your dragon 2 spaces, purchasing a card from the market for 6 coins. Or up to 6 coins for free, drawing additional cards, taking cards from the discard pile, moving your character or dragon 3 spaces, or even flexible cards like this that can move either of those characters. Now, once you've taken your actions and spent your currency, let's just say I choose to buy this one, the market would get replenished like so, and then all the cards you've used for the round will get put on a discard pile like so, and then you'll draw the next 5 cards from your deck. In this case, they're all going to be those money cards to help me buy more cards, and it'll go onto my opponent's turn. But once you've run out of your deck, you're going to reshuffle everything you've discarded and go again, with the desire of getting better and better cards, moving faster and more efficiently as you go. So, funnily enough, deck builders are not generally my cup of tea. I don't get a hell of a lot of satisfaction out of playing them. But I picked this one up simply because of the theme. I'm a huge House of the Dragon fan, and I wanted this one for my collection. And I was actually not unimpressed or not disappointed with the way it works from a board game mechanical perspective. There's actually a decent amount of cards available to you. I've only shown you a very select few. And it actually is remarkably smooth, and that's kind of one of the game's biggest strengths, is that all the rules to this game fit on a couple of pages of A4, and you're good to go. Just simply draw your cards, take the actions, and buy new cards, and reshuffle when you need to. The aim of the game is literally linear. There's not different paths to victory. You're going to be doing the same thing every time, simply buying as many movement cards as you can and trying to get that finish line before your opponent does. So there is there's definitely a glass ceiling on how many times you're going to get enjoyment out of this one, because there simply isn't the options and different paths of victory and different kind of wrinkles of the game to explore. But that being said, it is a nice introduction to the deck building genre. If you have friends who love House of the Dragon or Game of Thrones but aren't into board games, this one isn't going to leave you feeling embarrassed, because there's enough here to sink your teeth into for a game or two and maybe see some new things that you haven't seen before. But I think if you are into deck builders or you're into the board game hobby space, this one isn't really going to do much for you, because to be honest, it is very basic stuff. There's nothing new here at all, and as I said, it's a little bit too literally linear. Just go across a track and hopefully get there before your opponent. It almost feels like a like an AI generated, my first deck builder. You can see that this isn't really inspired. There's nothing here to differentiate it from the seas of deck builders out there. But that being said, it is perfectly functional. Now, I do find it strange that despite this one being obviously a House of the Dragon themed game, there's literally no theme in this game whatsoever. It doesn't even make sense which characters you can play because all the characters are from the same faction. So yeah, it's definitely, it's a mass market game. They've not really thought about the thematic, tangible ties with this one. Also, production-wise, the component quality is very, very low. This is very cheap kind of cardboard, put in these little cheap chintzy plastic stands. The card stock is very low quality, as you might expect with a mass market game. So the board actually looks quite cool. At least the artwork looks cool, but again, it's literally just a track. So all in all, it's a fine game. It's an acceptable game. But again, if you're into the board game space, this is going to do nothing for you other than being a collectibles, a collector's item really, which is what it's going to be for me. So I think after a play or two, you're going to see everything this game has to offer, and it's not going to offer you much more than that. So unfortunately, I can't overly recommend this one. That is Sky of Fire. So let's move on to the next game, which is Seat of Power. And with the Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon IP, this is probably the style of game that you'd be expecting to match with that theme, because this is much more of an area control, conflict-driven game as you are fighting for dominance of this map. You're going to be trying to control all the kind of famous, holdings and castles and stuff from the Westeros universe. So obviously this game would be populated with your military units, which are these simple little squares. And you'll also have your dragon, which is another one of those cardboard pieces that look like so. You're going to be moving around the map using these action cards. You're going to have quite a small hand of cards at any time, and they will do different things, such as giving you more military units onto the board by putting them where you have cubes or areas next to where you have cubes. You've also got things such as, if I can find stuff, you've got these dragon cards, these Targaryen shield cards, which will boost your combat strength, because normally when you fight, you're simply having a d6 roll off. Whoever rolls the highest will kill their enemy unit. But if you play dragon cards, you can boost that unit by rolling these dragon dice and getting extra pips, hopefully to try and beat your opponent. And you've also got these movement cards that look like this, which will let you navigate around the map and moving your military units. And they are color-coded, as you can see. And that comes in this kind of like multiplier action, where if you play one card, you can move one army. But if you play more cards of the same type and same color, then say with a pair, you can move 3 spaces, and with 3, you can move 5 spaces. So they do combine with each other and get stronger and stronger. There are a couple more cards like these Valarian cards here, which will let you move coastal regions, of course, as you're going through the water, to other coastal regions. And if you play a pair of those, then you will get to basically move further than that, because you can see that there's different segments within the sea. But if you play 2 of them, you can jump to the next region. So that's kind of how you're taking your actions. You've also got the ability to play these special cards, which, these are little tricks you can have up your sleeve, such as preventing your opponents from taking actions in certain spaces. You've got these kind of reinforcement cards where if you fight, you can add 1 to your roll, or if you fight in a very specific location, like in this example, if you fight in Wickenden, you will add 2 to your roll to give you a better standing in that particular region. But you can see there's other things like this, such as move your dragon up to 5 land spaces. You've got a quick march here that says move up to 3 land spaces. And you play it on your turn. You've got this Not Today card that says use a blocked clash card played against you. You basically can veto other people taking their actions, and so on. But the objective of this game is to try and travel to these different holdings, try and kick people out of these regions by rolling higher pips than them. And if you get all of the seats within those regions, which can range from 3 to 5, I believe, in fact up to 7, like Lannisport's here, then you will put a control marker relating to that number. So if I control Lannisport with all of my people, then I will get 7 points, and it's going to be a race to get to 21 points in a long game, or only 13 points if you want to play a shorter game. Now, there are other little things you can do, such as, do sea battles by, attacking from the sea and things like that, but you can probably imagine how the game plays. It's pretty much just moving around the map, fighting people and trying to grab those strongholds. So these kind of games generally aren't my cup of tea. There are exceptions to that, but normally this kind of dice-driven roll to resolve combat leaves me wanting, and this is another example of that. It's never really fun just to roll dice and see who rolls the highest wins. There's no real skill or no real agency in that, and you have to be willing to roll with the luck when you play this game. It can be a little bit grindy as well, because if people say have 5 of the 7 seats in the city, then kicking them out is very difficult. It takes a long time, lots of dice rolling, so it can get a little bit tedious. I do like the extra step they've taken with the actual card management, where you can hold back cards into your hand and store them up, try to match those colours to have bigger turns. But all in all, it kind of becomes a big boring grind, which is not fun and not the kind of style of game that I enjoy. So if you like games like Risk and you do like the House of the Dragon theme and the the Westeros map, then this one might be one to look at. But if you are into board games and you've played more sophisticated area control games, this one is certainly not going to do much for you. So another big miss for me, despite me wanting it to be good. So that is Seat of Power. So that concludes the video. Unfortunately, I cannot recommend either of these House of the Dragon games, but hopefully one day we will get a designer House of the Dragon game that really does have good mechanisms as well as those good thematic ties, which sadly none of these games do. Admittedly, Skyify is a perfectly acceptable game, but again, it's pretty standard stuff and you're going to get bored with it pretty quickly, whereas Seat of Power is very dated, it's very slow and quite boring and tedious, which is a massive shame. So hopefully this video has been useful to you, because I don't think there's much content out there for these games. And if it has, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel and check out my other content too. And for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye bye.